So thank you both for being here. It's always interesting, like, I should say in a COVID world, you never know, but also in a holiday world and all of that, you never know who is going to come. So we might have people pop in, or it just might be us, which is also great. So I will share my screen and start here. Did not, hello? What's happening from beginning? Yes, please. There we go. So you'll have to bear with me a little bit today. My name is Sarah Williams, and I am a collaborative network consultant here at the Jackson Collaborative Network. And usually I have Amy Fors is our other consultant, and we do the work together. And she is out on some family leave. So we're just going to, we work really well together. So we're just going to move forward. Usually we tag team kind of like who's recording, who's watching the chat, so I'm doing it all today. We're just going to see how it goes. But I'm so glad you're with us. If you would feel comfortable unmuting yourself and introducing yourself and the agency you're with, if that's applicable.
Go first. I'm Tashna Thomas. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Hereford Allegiance Health. And I've been with the organization 17 years, and this is actually my first affinity group. So,
yay! Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angie Shepard. I'm with Region 2 Area Agency on Aging. I'm a program manager. I think I've been to one of these before. I'm sort of filling in for somebody else today. So I was actually going to go back and try to watch some of the YouTube videos so that I could get caught up, but I didn't have time. So I'm glad to be here and just represent our agency.
Yeah, thanks for being here. You bring up a good point too, because in the intent of, well, and I'll talk about some of it too, and the intent of the affinity group was in an ideal world, you have the group of people that kind of stays the same-ish, depending on schedules, and that the work can build and we can like strengthen strategies. And of course, schedules make it really hard for that. And also changing roles and positions and meeting virtually and never in person. So we're just doing our best. And we thought maybe if we recorded things, it would help people, but also every affinity group we end up kind of setting the stage because we have new people that join, which is great. So we'll do that today. And then also there are a lot of maybe slides, like, oh, if that comes up, we'll talk about it. And if not, then we won't, and we'll just move forward. So we already did this. Happy New Year. This is our first affinity group since the new year too. So like readjusting. I think it would be a lie if I said I'm totally settled, but I'm like medium settled into the new year, like getting there, I'm a fairly honest person. So this is just an idea, a description of the group I kind of already talked about, but the intent of the affinity group is really designed around the root causes. And you all may have seen, we have 3 current affinity groups, and they are meeting around a root cause. And this one is the making service systems less difficult to navigate. We also have one around building trust in the community, and we have one around inequitable policies and practices. And of course, like the messiness that goes along with that, because they kind of all are intertwined. And also a lot of the work that people do can affect more than one root cause, right? Like if you're working on building trust in the community, it will probably then make service systems easier to navigate. So just acknowledging that it's not cookie cutter, and the idea essentially is to bring people together around like big community issues versus sector based. And then the network in a lot of groups still are very sector based, which has its strengths. But if I'm working in, we always like use maternal child health as like an example. If I'm working in that sector, it's helpful to connect to other people. But if I'm working on like building trust with like young Black moms, and someone else in like education is working on the same building trust, to me, and we always talk about like what a benefit it is to bring people together regardless of sector. So that's the intent of the affinity groups. And it really is about you all, community partners, bringing your strategies together. Like, what are you doing? And there's really an onus on what organizations are doing to make service systems less difficult to, or yes, less difficult to navigate, and less on like those people over there need to do this thing, right? It really is about strategies people are working on. We will also focus on how to partner with community members. It's been really cool to see all the connections that have come, like regardless of the group sizes that we get, it seems to always end up in the last time we met in this group. There was a discussion around like people, I think even maybe Michigan Works was there. I don't remember, but there was like there was a disconnect between an employer who like wanted to hire people and then someone who had workers that could not find employment. And like, oh, like well, maybe we could find a way to partner, or what barriers are prohibiting your people from finding jobs. And like, oh well, and we had a long talk because like a certain large hospital facility that you and I are both employed at has a reputation of like, you have to like know someone to get in. Like, okay, so like, how do we combat that? Like, so anyway, it's been really cool to see the connections that have come from the group. And that's kind of the intent also, that people will build partnerships and connections that are not reliant on us, that will like last much longer than these groups. And then our role, or my role today, is really just to support, facilitate, connect, educate, share resources. If you are like stuck and like, hey, do you have this technical assistance thing, like a resource, I'm always happy to help look. By no means am I like an expert in things, except people maybe, and connecting and learning about the work that people are doing to then help connect them to others. Just a quick stop at like the goals, hopefully, of people attending, gaining knowledge and skills necessary to drive action on systems change. And we do talk about this quite a bit because systems change is hard and messy, and a lot of people are doing it and maybe not realizing it, or they're just running programs that are not sustainable, and then they kind of like are dependent on a person or a position. So our goal is often to try and like help people understand, or maybe shift or align with systems change, so that we then feel like we're moving the needle on the big things. It's also messy and takes a long time, but that's our goal, one of the goals. We already talked about enhancing partner connections and building upon ways partners have succeeded in improving trust. We talk a lot about building trusted relationships with people with lived experience to elevate community power, knowing that communities know what matters most to their health and well-being. And especially like, I'll speak from the network, you know, my view of as like a middle-class white woman is very different than someone who is living in a different neighborhood. And how am I helping to shift power, and how am I helping to elevate voices? And so we talk a lot about that, especially when we're talking about strategies and we're talking about what are you doing to address this problem? Well, like, how do you know it's a problem, and who have you talked to? And of course, we will track and measure progress, because data helps a lot of things. It helps us like understand if something is working or not, but it also, I mean, when you think about, I don't ever want to think about future funding or things like that, but it does help tell a story. And also we've talked a lot recently about creative ways to track and measure progress. And it's not just, you know, like census data, but it could also be like someone you talked to when you were in line at the grocery store, and like being really creative about data. Anything, any questions or anything, feel free to jump in. You know, I realize I'm like talking a lot, but. We just have a quick stop at group norms. If either of you have been in groups before, this could be familiar, but we just like the idea that when we're coming together from different viewpoints and different lenses, different backgrounds, that we are creating a space where people feel comfortable sharing things, pausing before maybe saying, anything that comes to your mind. The paraphrasing is very much like not assuming things. So like, Teshna, I heard you say this thing. Is this what you meant? Right? Like, so that's the paraphrasing. Posing questions, putting ideas on the table. We're hoping that, like, say for example, Angie's like, actually, you know, I had this idea, but I'm not sure if that's going to resonate or not. And then someone else could say, actually, I tried this thing and it failed horribly. Like, here's an idea. So we're hoping that this is a space where people feel very comfortable sharing successes and challenges and ideas. We will always provide data in the group norms, pay attention to yourself and others, obviously step out if you need to, and then presuming positive intention tends to be helpful. And then here are some ways that we engage with our partners. And so, and when I use the word partners, we used to use the word members too. I feel like both imply that like you've been through some sort of like initiation or whatever, but really it's just like people in the community who are wanting to be a part of the groups we're providing or like are engaged in some way. So we have a couple different ways. We have a partner profile we have like a public database, and I don't know if I did a screenshot, probably not, but it's a way for people to see what you're doing in the community really quickly, and then like what root cause it ties to. So for example, I could say like, I'm Sarah Williams, I'm working at Jackson Collaborative Network, and I'm working to help reduce the disparity on within youth seeking mental health services in Jackson County. I don't know, something. And then I would tie it to a root cause, like, and we have a drop down. So like, oh, I'm tying it to services are inequitable or something, you know? So that way, if Angie got on, she could say like, oh, I didn't even realize that Sarah was doing this. You can connect with me. And also it helps us to know like what big things people are working on in the community. Let me see. I don't think I have it, a screenshot. That would have been, it's always hard to know who's going to be here. Let's see. That's okay. I'll send you, obviously, I'll send you the link later for that, but that would be, it also just helps us know too, if a lot of people are working on, this is how we decided to create the three big groups that we have right now, because the data showed us people are entering in that they're working on trust in the community. And if you all are working on, there are like 14 root causes, and it was done a couple of years ago, a ton of data and surveys out to everyone in the community on like what people are working on. And then it was like themed into like 14 big different root issues. So if someone's, I think one of them is like gun violence or something, which is very specific, but if like a lot of people are saying I'm working on this issue, then that would tell us like, oh, well, let's gather around that then and see if like people want to meet around that. We've also have engaged, you are in it right now, an affinity group discussion. And then we have it, this is not super linear, but it looks linear from here. We have action planning. So that is really a specific, it's like the next step. So for example, Angie, if after this meeting, you were like, oh, actually I'm working on this strategy to, we're having trouble, I'm trying to think, like we're having trouble in this area and we've been collecting data this way, but it's not working anymore. And so we could work together to create an action plan that would like, oh, okay, well, do you need a resource? Do you need a connection? Do you need something? Essentially, it's just it's an opportunity for us to, it's like dive deeper than a partner profile, and also have Amy or myself help you all if you get stuck, or maybe there are connections or ways that we can help. We track and report the progress by updating the action plan. If you had like a goal or an activity to like, oh, I'm going to meet with this person in the community and see how it goes, then we would just track and report it. And then obviously report successes and walk through barriers and how we can all learn together. We often say like there's very little failure, right? It's just like adjusting taking data in and then readjusting. So I'll move forward. I promise we're getting to the point soon here where I'm going to stop talking. But in previous months, what we tend to do is just talk about the strategies that you all are working on or might want to tackle around service systems being difficult, or like, how do you even know? Like, why did you choose this root cause? Like, you know, like what are some of the barriers, or what are some of the things that you've heard people say? And then like, where do we go from here? And so I did put in a couple examples from previous months on what people had talked about, what they've brought up, what that led to. Last month, we had someone from College and Career Access, Nancy, was here, attended, and talked a lot about the desire to like expand their network of people who they're targeting. And we talked a lot about barriers to employment being childcare and how multi-layered it was. I think Anne is from the health department. So there was just, we talked a lot about what are some barriers. And then actually we met with Anne afterwards and we created like an action plan with her, because she was like, I'm having a tough time trying to like meet my people with employment because there's a huge childcare barrier. And like, okay, well, is it transportation? Is it, we don't know about childcare access? Is there like, how can we, that kind of started a conversation. So that was that. And then the month prior, we talked about some other things, because service systems being easier to navigate feels like it's very broad and people work in different sectors. So like services could mean a lot of things. We talked a lot about policies being the barrier and like how much of that is even in our control, and using sphere of influence and how much, you know, power am I exerting to change this thing versus is it even a policy? Maybe it's a tradition that is not a policy. That came out, I think from Michigan Works. They talked about like, this is the way things have always been done. And then she looked it up and it was not a policy. And so yeah, there were just some conversations we had that ended up leading to action. And then some of them led to some action plans with us. And then some people, you know, ideally connecting with others after the meeting. So I will jump here and move to the Padlet. Ooh, let's see if I can do it. New share. So if you, I should put it in the chat. So if you go to, sorry, this is me navigating a meeting alone. All right, let's try that. So I put the link to the Padlet in the chat. If you want to go to that link and pull up the browser, it is a live document screen, whichever. And you're able to click on the pink plus sign in the bottom right to enter strategies you're working on to make service systems easier to navigate, or things that you want to work on. You also don't have to type it in if you want to verbally share. I'm good at taking notes and kind of capturing what people are thinking, or even maybe successes you've had. And I'd love to hear, and I know Angie, you're like representing someone or whatever, but I would imagine too that you could speak, you know, for like whatever either of you feel comfortable sharing, or maybe even the reason that you chose this group or over others.
I know for me, this is my first one, so I'm still kind of like not quite sure what's going on. I kind of, you know, I got some history behind it. I met with Amy and Sherry. So I'm still learning. Yeah, so when you say service systems, like I know it's so broad, like what
It
you
is.
said. Is it we just pick something that we're working on, or
Yeah.
something simple?
Well, and honestly, like exactly, like because service systems are so big, right? We had someone that attended that was like working in the foster care system, and their barrier was talking about like, oh my gosh, the paperwork that our clients have to fill out is so cumbersome, and like that is a huge barrier to navigating service systems. And then we had someone else that was like talking about managing employees, and they were trying to like help people, but the computer software was like uh, so it really can be anything, with the idea that um like, what things have you heard, like how do you know service systems are hard to navigate? We could start there too, and then also some ideas, anything, some ideas around it, because the intent is that there likely will be overlap between like the thought, either the barriers or interventions or thoughts around um, like, how do you know, right? How do we even know that service systems are difficult? Um, and I know and depending on where you sit, service systems is defined differently. So however you want to define it.
I was just thinking, I feel like this is a topic that our agency is just sort of, ongoing. We're always working on this type of thing. It's something that just popped into my mind. How do we know? I know in our intake and referral department we get tons and tons of calls, and we work with older adults. A lot of times, they'll send a referral to my department, and I'll talk to the consumer, and they will be so confused about, they know that they've talked to this person, that person, or they have somebody that's, supposed to be calling them back, or they're supposed to be following up with somebody, and they can't even keep it straight, like who they've talked to and what they've talked to them about. They just know they've made all these phone calls, and they might have a list, they might not, but they're often very confused about who they talk to, what they talk to them about, and whether or not they're supposed to follow up. That's something that I see happen pretty regularly.
And is that like the process, right? So it's like the protocol of like how the intake referral goes, or they might have like more than one call, right? It sounds like, or like, and then they're not sure where to go.
Right.
All right, so I had something that just came to mind. I don't know if this counts, because me being in the community, as you know, the community engagement, there's one project that I'm working on with another organization, Disability Connections,
Mm-hmm.
in regards to accessibility to our locations. So as an organization, from a regulatory perspective, we follow the ADA guidelines. But the ADA guidelines, some of well, a lot of times, we meet the requirements, but then there are things that we can do in addition to help make accessibility easier for patients. And so what we just met actually last month, and then I have a follow-up meeting coming up here soon where we're gonna assess our locations, our offsite locations, to see if there's anything that we need to do to make it more accessible to, to patients. It could be something as easy as, how you have your handicap door button that you push to open up the door. That's not necessarily required by ADA, but it could be something that a patient or, might be better for patients. So that is something that I'm working on with that count.
That's great.
And that's just based off of me having a meeting with the director. And he said that that was something that they offer, to do assessments. And I went to our facilities director and said, hey, have we done this? So it kind of spun off of just a conversation I had. So
That's great. Yeah. Laura from Disability Connect often attends, and she's great. And like, she has really been an integral part, especially of like this affinity group. That's great. And so you said that this conversation just came, or this like action just came from a conversation you had.
Yeah, so what it was I'm new to this role as of this past August. So I am still doing meet and greets with various people in the community. And so in conversation, um, it was said that, they do these types of assessments. Well, my background comes from an accreditation background. And so all the regulatory compliance, things like that. So it was kind of like, and I know, like I said, I know we follow ADA guidelines. That's, we have to. But then in addition to that, like I said, a door opener is not necessarily a requirement. But so then, yeah, so I got with our facilities director, and we're going to be actually planning out which offsite locations we're going to tackle first, with doing an assessment and seeing, what we can do to make our our locations more accessible to patients with disabilities.
Great. And then how do you, this probably is getting in the weeds, but then like, is it just like, how will you know they're more accessible? Is it just like putting in, like you said, like the handicap button or whatever, or is there a measure where like you can ask people, or will the measure be like more people with disabilities now frequent this site, or like?
Yeah, so we actually are using, well, we actually are using Disability Connections to do the assessment.
Oh,
So
I didn't realize that was part of it.
Yeah, so that's when I had the conversation. They mentioned, John, he mentioned that this is a service that they do. And so it was one of those things in my mind, okay, let me put this in the back of my mind. I didn't tell him anything, but it was kind of like, okay, let me go back to our facilities and say, hey, when the last time we did an assessment, like I said, we meet the ADA guidelines, but is there anything we can do in addition? We're not required, but yeah, it could be better for the patient. So we're going to be, the team that I pulled together for our organization is going to be mapping out a plan to figure out which locations we should do first. I forgot the guy's name, but he's going to come in and do the assessment, and then we'll look at the assessment and see, what we can do, based off that assessment, what improvements we can make.
Oh,
we might not be able to do all of them because it costs money. But, is there something, more, I call them low hanging fruit type things that maybe we can address. So yeah, we're going to pay them to actually do the assessment. We look at the assessment and see, what we can.
That makes sense. So then they provide like, here's what we think about these sites. And then you guys, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
That makes sense too. We
have a bunch of offsite locations, so we just gotta figure out which ones we're gonna do first, which ones make more sense to do, because like I said, we probably have to stretch it out over a time frame. It's not like we're gonna be able to do everything like right now, so have a plan.
That makes sense. And especially too, like you were saying, we talk about like the low hanging fruit all the time, and like tackling that first, and then like how to address the rest later too. That's great.
Yeah.
Angie, are there any, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just gonna say, so I'm excited about that one.
No, that's great. And I also am a big fan of like using people and organizations for like what they're good at. I'm just like, oh, you're good at this. Please help me. And
you're the expert, so I'm gonna use you.
Exactly. That's great. Angie, I know we talked super briefly about like process or protocol. And I feel like we've talked about this, and other agencies have also talked about this for sure. DHS said like in their process too. Are there any like, has there been any conversation around like ways to address it or like make it less confusing for the intake process, or like just as you're talking about like, that this thing is happening, is there any conversation around like ways to mitigate it?
I have not been a part of any conversations internally that where we've discussed this. I'm just this observation of something that I see, you know.
Mhm.
But, you know, I do think that one of the ways that could help people is just when our intake talks to people who are confused like that, and they say, well, you know, these are the places we would refer you for this particular problem. You know, it helps if maybe they can reach out, you know, on behalf of that person. I think 211 is a really awesome resource, and I love that they have those community, I can't think of the title, the transition, they're navigators, community navigators, or whatever they are. I think they are great because that's sort of they can be like a point person for, especially for somebody that's confused and maybe doesn't have, you know, the cognitive abilities that a younger person, you know, to have that point person who can reach out individually to each referral source. And I don't know if, you know, if younger populations have the same problem. I would imagine they would. There's so many resources out there. But I do think that that's a really good way to try to solve it, is just to have, you know, have them working with that one person that can help them reach out to all these different referral sources to help them keep it straight.
Yeah, well, I can, like, taking my employee hat off, I can tell you for sure, like, I have people in my personal life who, I have like a 20-year-old niece who's like, Aunt Sarah, I don't know how to get health insurance. And I was like, well, let's make a list and step by step and do this thing, right? And so, like, and obviously people have different skill sets, but these systems are overwhelming, and you have to do things in a certain way, and you have to like check off the boxes. And without a support person, I feel like much of life is very difficult, right? But like, to me, thinking about like being able to have healthcare, it's like, oh, it's too much. I just can't. Like, they just don't do it, and for a good reason, because it's like it's a lot.
It's like financial aid.
Oh God, the
Cool.
FAFSA, like it's like flashbacks.
The reason why I say that, because my nephew, actually, one of my nephews and one of my nieces just graduated this past year, and you know, going to college or whatever. And so it's like, oh my God.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And to your point, Tasha, I love that. So like in one of my previous roles, when I was in grad school, I went to Michigan State, and I worked with students who were, or like used to be in the foster care system. It was one of my favorite jobs, but I had to help them navigate FAFSA every year. And I swear, and the best thing I ever did was build a relationship with someone in the financial aid department, because who actually like cared about young people too. And so I would just, it is so messy though. It's so hard. I don't even know, like as a full grown adult, I'm like, I don't even know what you should put in that box. Like it's so hard. So yeah, exactly. And I feel like it's all related. It's all related to like, we all agree that these things are really hard.
Yes.
So like what steps, what can I do? Like what part do I have control over? Or like who can I talk to? And frankly, even like building a relationship with someone who knows how to do it, I feel like is success. Cause like I can't change a federal policy, but I can like build a relationship with someone who knows this thing really well, and like how to craft it so that these young people are getting as much money as they can get, or, you know, grants and stuff.
And that's I was going to say, that's something that I feel like we have been working on at our agency, is that relationship building. Like, for example, we recently have part of my job is housing. And so we get a lot of phone calls about people who housing is really difficult right now. There's not a lot of open units. There's people sleeping in cars, and, you know, all this difficulties people are having. But so we started just having quarterly meetings with Community Action Agency, because they do so much in housing, but everything's changing all the time. So just having that touch base, like every quarter, every so often with them, so that we know what they're doing and what they have available. And like, you know, vice versa, they know what we're doing and who they can send to us. I think that's going to be really helpful for us. And I think maybe doing that with when we start getting phone calls about other issues, you know, building those relationships is really important.
And I think that you bring up such a good point too. And really our conversation like naturally led there, right? Because I don't think the answer to like how to make service systems easier is always like, let me go grab this policy and change it real quick. And I really, well, and I'm also a social worker, so I'll lead with that. But I do think the success to most things in life is relationships.
It's relationships.
And
I agree.
it is. And it's like trusting relationships. And it's like, I know now, and like, hopefully Tesha and I are in more rooms together and soon she'll be able to say, oh yes, like if you have this thing, you could like go to Sarah, she can help you with that. And like, no, and I can say like, oh, actually I was just talking with Angie about this. And so to me, there's a piece, and Nancy, who, hello, late shower upper, but here nonetheless, I know. So, but I know Nancy, so I can harass her, but like, no, but like, I feel like relationships are the key to everything. And I know Nancy well enough to know that like, I could send a person to her and she would like get shit done. Oh, Nancy, I'm going to swear now. This is what happens when Nancy shows up. I know. So Nancy, thanks for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourself quickly? I'm not sure if everyone knows who you are.
I've met Teshna and Angie. I don't know if we've personally met, but I'm Nancy Peters Lewis. I'm with the College and Career Access Center.
Thanks for being here. We were just, I think I referenced you earlier as well, because we were talking about previous meetings we've had, and I was talking about how you had a desire to reach out and expand the people in the audience you were working with, and I was recapping a little bit. So I did bring you up earlier. Yes. Okay. And now we're talking about relationships. So you know all about that.
Yes, it's huge. And I'm so glad I was able to get in. I apologize for being late. I find value in this, even if I can just pop in late and just to be able to hear the conversation and what's happening. It's kind of an organic conversation with structure around it. So I appreciate that. It always gets my mind ticking. So
thanks. That's maybe my favorite description ever. And my desire, because I feel like we always say like we never know where the conversation will go. It always depends on who shows up. And we have like, you know, a loose agenda, but like the intent is that like who is here, what is happening, how can we work together, and like all the things that bubble up from that.
So you guys are, I don't want to just like butt in, but I'm curious about Teshna, the Disability Connect piece. Have you worked with rehabilitation services at all too? Do you guys do anything with Michigan Rehabilitation Services?
Not that I know of. This just so happened, you know, I was doing being somewhat new to the role. It was me doing meet and greets. And so in the conversation with the meet and greet, that's how this came about.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. And it's, you know, more Jackson.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know the other group. So
we have the folks that are on, well, I should say, depending on what the IEP level is, or with disability connections, that if they come into the College and Career Access Center, we do support them. But some of the things that we do is we refer them to Michigan Rehabilitation Services, which is in Jackson, and and then they help with students who are disabled to be able to support them a little more than we have the capacity to be able to do because of the resources that they have. So I was just looking at the different things in here and just wondering.
Yeah, Teshna was sharing that they are, I don't know if contracting is the right word, but using disability connections for like their service of assessing their offsite locations to see how if they can be improved for people with disabilities, and then take their report and decide like what to do, how much to do, when to do it, all of that.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. I'm just reading the other thing too.
Nancy, do you have an update on your like anything you want to share, strategies you're working on around service systems? And we were talking too before you came in, like how broad that is and how it can be overwhelming to like even say like, what are you doing around service systems? But then also, however you define it, it tends to be like someone can be, oh, actually that reminds me of this thing, or actually that relates to the work I'm doing too.
Right, right. I guess I can give a recap of just what the center is doing right now. We have our advising out in the 13 districts that's happening. That happens every day with our advisors and the seniors with their post-secondary plans at the school districts. And then we also have, in terms of initiatives I'm talking about right now, for community initiatives, we also have, we're out at the Interfaith Shelter now. So we're out there once a month working with their guests there with just resumes, cover letters, interview soft skills. We're also for community initiatives out. We're starting a relationship with the place right next door, which are, and I can't for the life of me think of the name of it. If you guys know, just shout it out. I can't remember. But we're going to be starting a outreach out there, and that is basically women's foster care that have aged out of foster care, but they have nowhere to go. So there's a group of young women that live there, just women. There's about 9 or 10 of them. So we're going to go out and service them. So we're really trying to get out into the community, not just have people coming into the center or working with the students out in the 13 districts. So one of my goals in attending these meetings too is to expand that network, to see if there's any connections in terms of us being able to go out into the community. We also are thought partnering and acting as a liaison to the 13 districts with ShopRat for the Dream Maker program, which is through the Poppy family. So we're laying the groundwork in the 13 districts for ShopRat to be able to provide robotics to all 3rd through 8th graders in every school district during the school day. So the goal in that is 100% access to that high demand field in engineering. So those are some of the areas that we're working on in terms of community initiatives and outreach, that really the systems, I guess, from our perspective, we have one more too that we're doing, which is a Jackson Student Anti-Racism Coalition, which does correlate somewhat with our mission. Well, very much with our mission. It aligns with our servicing of students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds and students of color, closing that gap for post-secondary education. And with all these, we've run into challenges. And so just in terms of feedback on, for instance, with the Anti-Racism Coalition, we've had some interesting organized feedback from individuals, but who have organizations behind them that don't like the premise necessarily of the Anti-Racism Coalition. So we've been having to kind of navigate those waters, making sure that we're able to articulate what it is that we're doing and who's supporting that. And so working through that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of word vomiting, I feel like, but those are kind of the big pieces that we're of our community initiatives that we're working on. And yeah, really the focus areas are closing the post-secondary attainment gaps for everyone, but particularly our low-income students, our first-generation students, our students of color. And so that we're everything we do surrounds that arena. So
Thanks. That's great. Thank you for sharing.
yeah.
And I'm trying to think, I'm trying to look at like what we talked about last.
That is looking ahead with our next strategic plan at work-based learning opportunities and experiential learning, looking to expand like what that would look like and how the system, like what I think what we talked about was how the systems are so big in terms of being able to like really penetrate into these different environments, these different high demand career fields. Like for instance, Teshna, we were in a meeting recently surrounding basically healthcare and how to create a pipeline for healthcare opportunities, and just really matchmaking, like serving as a matchmaker, the College and Career Access Center, like we did with Consumers for Dream Makers and with ShopRat. And so, but it's not easy to navigate because there's so many parties that are trying to work towards the same thing, but just making it easier and more efficient, I think, is what we had a conversation around about work-based learning and experiential learning.
That was something that I think that I captured from our notes last time in our conversation that we had, and how I actually wrote the word matchmaker in the notes because you were like, we just like need to be a matchmaker. Of like, I was like, it's true, because there's like a need here and a need here, and like, why can't they? What is the barrier? What is the thing in the middle? You know?
Yeah. Angie, where are you from? What do you do?
I'm with Region 2 Area Agency on Aging.
Okay. I'm just looking at your pieces.
Yeah, we were talking about, and Angie shared earlier too, because there are different people from area and aging that come to our affinity groups. I know Kara does sometimes, and different people. But talking about, Angie shared like, how do you know services are difficult? And that was kind of where we started.
Okay.
And then also like ideas around how to, improve like an intake process or protocol, but also then just talking about building relationships. I think that's where you came in, but we're really just, and to have like, in an ideal world, that would also be a strength of these groups too, like being able to leave. And I know, Nancy, I feel like that's happened with you, right? Like after these groups, you can like, oh, hey, I'll connect with you about this thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And in an ideal world, I feel I can't even say like when we return to work anymore, because it feels like it will be never, but like,
Nope.
like there's so much value in just like being with people and meeting. And I feel like there's such strength and loveliness in that. But I feel like if you have like, I don't know about 30, but you like 20 people in a room, and you have this really lovely, vibrant, connecting thing that you all find value in, it just feels, then the connections and the like, after this meeting, I will be able to speak to like Nancy's status and like connect Teshna to things. And so, yeah, it's been like slow and small, these groups, but I feel like they're always valuable. And I love, Nancy, that you said like, I'm coming in late. I still value it. I'm coming in.
Yeah, I do. So for your, Angie, for your place, do you, what ages do you serve for your population?
We focus older adults, so I would say, I guess, 60 and older for most of our programs. And then we do serve adults with disabilities as well. So if they're, under that age, but they have some type of disability, we do have services for them as well.
And is it through housing that you serve them, or how do they get referred to you? And do they come to you or to your place? Or?
Well, we have a whole bunch of different programs that people might qualify for, and our mission is to help older adults and adults with disabilities be safe and independent in the community. So that's all of our programs are geared toward that. So housing is part of what I do. That's part of my department. I oversee an elder abuse prevention program, and then our housing coordinator, and then we also have a community transition program. So for people who are in a nursing home but want to return to the community, we have a transition navigator who helps them. So the programs I oversee are sort of related to housing, dependent on the person. But that was just an example I was using. We get a lot of calls lately, because of housing. Housing's difficult right now. So we identified that as, okay, we really need to start, developing or further developing our relationships with other housing providers in the community, because this is a big problem and we're getting a lot of calls and our resources are limited. So I think all the conversation around that relationship building and the collaboration it's so important. We're a nonprofit, resources can be limited, and I think that's just invaluable, you know, those relationships.
So your clientele, they're not are they low income clientele that come to you, or like,
Some
it-
are, some are,
okay.
some are. It really, I mean, we have, you know, programs and services for people that don't, you know, there is no income limit. I'm like, for elder abuse prevention, just for an example, you know, that can happen to anybody. It's not, you know, there's no, and then we have like a Medicare, Medicaid assistance program where we have volunteers to help people through that process. When you were talking about FAFSA earlier,
Yeah,
I was like,
yes.
oh, the Medicare, Medicaid, that's very similar. And I've been through that training, and it's just, I don't think you can ever know everything.
Right.
But that is, yeah, so we really serve, you know, a pretty wide range.
Okay. One of my goals in coming to these is just to be able to get the word out about what the College and Career Access Center does, and then also learn what other places do. Like I know I think I heard your director speak one time to the Jackson Junior Welfare League a couple years ago. So I had some basis of knowledge of what you do, but also to be able to, you know, present to boards on what the College and Career Access Center does, to other boards, and to also present to other clients, particularly for us, just even grandparents. For us, grandparents want to know what they can support their grandkids with for College and Career Access Center. So I'm just thinking about if we'd have an opportunity at some point to be able to present to some folks. We present to churches all the time, which are mostly like elderly people that, and that helps with our support as well. But I don't want competing support, obviously, because you're a nonprofit, but I'm just thinking along those lines. I don't know if there'd be an opportunity for us to talk about what the College and Career Access Center does to your board, and we can talk.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah. Or to your clients. I mean, I don't know if they're all like in one space at one time ever, or where they.
No, no,
Okay.
but I mean, we do have, I'm just thinking, like, we have community education, you know, classes that, you know, focus on health and all that type of stuff. So like, and those are all virtual, you know.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that would be, and that actually, I'm just thinking that might be a good population. Do you know Martha York from our office by chance?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I could run that by her. That might be something she would be interested in. Yeah, I can run that by, you know, some of my coworkers and see what ideas we can come up with. But yeah, that might be an option.
Yeah, because from my perspective, it doesn't have to be like 100 women who care, who, you know, are like, which I love 100 women who care. I'm saying that in quotes, so it's a group. But, you know, that we go and present to these women who are each giving $100. We don't need that. But this is an aligned group of people, is what I'm saying, that need the information. Like, I would like to be able to get out to all the retirement homes and tell them about what the College and Career Access Center does, because I mean, they have families that they can, you know, talk to about what our services are and refer their grandkids, and I think it's important information to have about what we do, and that we're free and we can support your families and their college and career goals. So I'd love to be able to come into one of those. So
will you put your email in the chat and then I can follow up with you?
Yes, that'd be awesome. And see, I never know if this is appropriate when I'm like, am I going off on, am I going rogue as I talk about this?
Connections.
Yes. Okay, good. Because
I'm only interested in people that go rogue. I mean, have we met, Nancy? I always say, like, go rogue, like, for the good, you know, for the greater good.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, which we're talking. But we already, like, last time in the first couple meetings, we were able to connect with the health department, and now it's getting our mind rolling about, okay, maybe we should reach out to them to back out to the woman, which I was going to ask you what her name was, because I didn't.
Was it Ann Sloan?
Yeah. So reach back out to them and see if she could present to our staff on what they do, and then maybe we can go out to service the WIC moms that get WIC. I got WIC when my kids were younger, so when I say WIC moms, I'm I'm not labeling WIC mom because I was a WIC mom, but I have a lot of kids, FYI. So, but to be able to talk with them. So this helps to get the mind strategically thinking about new pieces. So I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, and the goal, I mean, to your point, Nancy, like we have, again, very loose structure. And the idea for these spaces is that the important things will rise to the top, and like whatever you all are working on will rise to the top. And I don't know what they are. I'm just hanging out, facilitating a space, and like, making sure no one goes too rogue. I'll rein it back in a little bit. But yeah, no, it's exactly it. And the idea is that there are strengthened partnerships, and that there are people that don't know each other, or that like similar work is being done that could benefit, and all of that.
Yeah, because I don't know that I would have, I mean, Teshna and I were in a meeting together, and we're going to be in another meeting together, but I don't know if I would have ran into you, Angie, in any other circle, except if I would have, like at your senior director one time presenting what you guys do, and that was a couple years ago. So
Angie, do you work with disability connections also? I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. You do. Okay.
We do. Yeah. We work, one of our, probably closest partners, I would say, with Disability Connections. And then we service Jackson, Hillsdale, Lenawee County. So the local departments on aging, we work really closely with them as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was going to say too, we actually have, when you were talking about, now I don't know if she does assessments for ADA requirements, but we have somebody that is trained to do like in-home assessments for accessibility. So like kind of what an occupational therapist would do, come in and say, oh, you might want to use area rugs, or like this might help you, that kind of thing.
what is service though? I think about when I'm old, if I didn't have anybody like, how do you tell people, we have people, older people stop in here all the time because we have mall walkers, a lot of mall walkers, because we're in the Jackson Crossing Mall. They all have a little club that a couple times a week that sit outside, and I just think just being able to know that it's out there is great. We just had this, somebody just sent me this early childhood spectrum of like goals and milestones on when your kid birth to 5 should be here and there, and which has nothing to do with college and career access. Well, it does. You could say early childhood obviously does, but those milestones, I'm like, okay, who could I send this to that it would make sense that I'm sending it? I don't want to, overburden anybody, but it was pretty cool. I mean, like, I was like, this is cool. When I was younger, when my kids were younger, I would have put this on my refrigerator probably. So I could have been like, okay, what's happening? Are you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Same.
Is my baby doing okay?
What? But you're saying that to like, so that when you receive information, the appropriate place it could go.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
as I'm sitting here just marinating on the area, I don't even know what it's called, Department on Aging.
Area Agency on Aging.
Area Agency.
Look, I captured it wrong in the notes. It tells you right there. I'm like, area on aging? Close.
Like AAA, that's how I'll remember it.
That's what we call it.
Oh, okay, good. All right, that is nothing new. Area. Yeah.
No, but that's true, because you're right. Because if someone today would have, before 1:00 p.m. today, if someone would have said, do you know anyone that does an in-home service for like ADA things, I would have been like, I don't. I probably would have said like, well, check with this agency or whatever. But now I can like, oh, actually, I know for sure because Angie in this meeting told me that this was a service. And I feel like that's one of the greatest things that come out of this. And people who are listening so far, I would say like 98% of people who attend actually like listen and participate, and like, I'm taking notes, I'll remember this later, and then come back too. So ideally we continue to build and strengthen relationships and add to the group, and try and if this time ends up being like, I did have 4 emails saying saying people couldn't come today because of conflicts. So if there are ever any other times that we're happy to move. We just want like as many people that want to attend to be able to come. That was a tangent, but it's all related.
Making me feel like I really should be taking notes.
Do you not see my beautiful notes right here?
I know they are good. I'm glad you doing it, because I'm over here like, what is that lady's name and who's this?
And also I can remind you after the meeting, but I will send you, there will be a follow-up email that all of you will get, and your emails will be on there. So if you forget someone's email from today's meeting, it will be on there.
Okay.
And then also the things we talked about before, I talked about the partner profile. I'll send you the link. And Nancy has completed a partner profile. Next time I'll put a screenshot in. I mean, I never know who's going to be at the meetings, but I'll send you a bunch of links after the meeting. And these beautiful notes in front of you that are so comprehensive and super official. I also saved them and we put them on our website, but I'm happy to send them as well if that's helpful. Really, they just give us a spot or the meeting or people who come next time too. If Nancy's like, what did I say I was going to do last month? I'll say, well, you said you're a matchmaker. Is that true? I'm going to put that in your partner profile. That's a great idea.
That's me.
So the public can see it.
Right.
That's a great description.
Oh, shoot.
Anything else we want to add to this before we move us along? There's only, I think, just a few more. And also, this is like, nothing ever is said and done and final. You know, everything, like, hopefully after today's conversation, maybe even like you have different thoughts, or you're like, actually, I thought about this thing and I'd like to reach out about it, or I don't know. Hopefully you, if anything comes up later, you feel comfortable contacting me. I would say, and or Amy, and it's just me today, but Amy is also very approachable. Then I will go back. Oh no. Can you see my PowerPoint now? Oh,
No.
heavens to Betsy. All right, hold on. I'm just gonna have to do it like this. Okay, so we have a spot here around sharing wins. We haven't really integrated it really well into these meetings because sometimes they feel disjointed and sometimes we've already talked about the wins. But we also have a spot on our website where we're trying to capture, Nancy, I think you actually entered one in, didn't you? There's like a spot. Oh, look at that. You are the screenshot. You are, who knew? So, but there are pieces we're trying to capture the work that people are doing in the community. And also some of the things we talk about are like, what problems are you having? And, oh, this is really heavy and will it ever get solved? And so we're also trying to capture the wins that are happening so that we can say like, look at the good things that are being done in the community. Did you even know this? Yay, Nancy. Like I could put a gold star there, whatever, you know. But we have a spot for, did I put it? Yeah, so I'll share this. There's a link we have for like your name, your email, what issue are you working to address, and what has happened so far. And honestly, like half of the conversation we had today, like Teshna, I could like list yours right now, and Angie, like, right. So like, there's just a piece in there too of being able to capture it and say, look at the good work that people in our community are doing. And sometimes people like don't want to do action plans because they're like, oh, it's too heavy, but I can tell you this great thing I'm doing. Okay, that's cool. Here's the spot for it. I'll send you that. This is just the action planning process that we use, the framework we use. And if you ever like, why are you asking me for data? Say, because it is part of the action planning process, and we won't move to designing powerful strategies until we understand why a thing is happening. So we have lots of like recorded webinar things on this, but I'll just briefly run by that. Oh, there's the YouTube where I am famous on the YouTube that is for the network, where you'll see lots of all of our previous recordings. Oh, this is just the action plan that we talked about earlier. I'll just breeze through that. And then the questions that we ask about action planning. How will you know if you're successful? What are you working on? How are you measuring? And then the next meeting for this group, so we tend to meet on the second Tuesday of the month at 12 o'clock. It's a standing meeting. It's possible I might like put out an email and ask people if they have a different preference. I don't know if this month was just weird. We had like 4 people respond saying like, I can't make it. We're open, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if the second Tuesday works great for you, we're going to keep it, and then maybe we'll move it. I would like to make sure that people who really find value can attend. And then we have 2 other affinity group meetings happening later this month. I mentioned earlier, we have 3 current ones. We will likely add at least 1 more this year based on what people are saying they're working on. So like I said before, the 14 root causes that have been identified in all of the surveys that were done and all the data collected. And so one of them might be, I'm not even gonna, I don't know. There are so many different ones that people say they're working on. And I can also send you a list for people who are like not super familiar with the root causes. The website also does a pretty good job of like snapshotting things that doesn't feel overwhelming. I think that I'm a little biased because I did help create it, but I will say that we tried our best to like keep things brief. But the affinity groups that are coming up, we're doing improved trust, and officially it's like between community members and providers, but honestly it's just like trust in general because it ends up kind of being that way. And that is next Wednesday. It's like the 3rd Wednesday. And then the equitable policies and practices, which could mean a lot of different things, meets like the 3rd Thursday. Anyways, Thursday the 27th at 11 o'clock. And all of these times are always changeable based on people's schedules and feedback we get. And also for people,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just a reminder for people new to affinity groups, there's never an expectation that you come to all. There's never an expectation that it's really value-based, right? Like and also we have a lot of people from like, we'll have agency representation maybe in each affinity group, but only if it makes sense. Like maybe there's a colleague that's working on strategies around building trust, but you're working more on inequitable practices. And so the idea is that like you are in a group that makes sense for you to be in, that you find value in, and that matches your work or the strategies you're working on. And also we would never say like, you have to come to 4 meetings a month or else, so it really is like where you find value.
I know for me, Sarah, I know even though I'm not directly involved with the equitable policies and practices, because I know that's something that, a lot of organizations are going through. I know that we're doing it, but I couldn't even really speak to, even though I did sign up for that one because I wanted to, just kind of see, but yeah.
Well, and you're never wed to a group. So also if you pop in and you're like, oh, this was not what I thought, there's no contract ever for you to continue attending. And it's so interesting, especially with that one in my mind, because if we start talking about equitable policies and practices, essentially my biased opinion is that all other root causes can be traced to that, right? Like if you really start talking about like, well, why is our poverty rate so high? I'm like, well, I mean, if we want to really get up high. So that is so broad. Like the people that come to that are either trying to like actually change policies, or they're working in a place that they realize that a thing is happening. So never pressure ever. I'm happy to cancel your registration. You won't be fined if you don't come, any of those things. But you're also welcome to like pop in and say like, oh, I'm not sure if this is a good fit for me or not,
Yeah,
so.
I just kind of wanted to see like which one kind of seems more fit for me. So
makes total sense.
I'm still attend that one, but we'll see for future, who knows?
Right.
Gather the data, see where you fit, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was gonna say too, and this is, I don't want to be, I don't know the word for it, but kind of, for me, the goal coming to these is really, I mean, obviously it's to work through the subject matter as being as it being an affinity group, but it is also to network
Yep.
and really connect and figure out what other people are doing. So I feel like I don't want to be using it or leveraging it in a way that I'm not contributing, but I also really want to leverage it. Does that make sense? I'm just being honest here. And so I don't know if that's being, I don't want to be superficial either in hopping in on each one, but I do really want to go to each one for those goals, those internally facing goals from my perspective. If I can hop in and find another ENG, and I already met Teshna, but if I can, from my perspective, if I'm going in and I'm learning something new about another organization and being able to spread the word about the College and Career Access Center, and then maybe being able to connect with that organization, I could go to all the meetings and be meeting my internal goals, but I don't know if I'll be like giving to what it needs to for the affinity group. Does that make sense? I don't want to just being served like, oh, I'm going to get what I can get and exit the premises. I mean, I don't want to be like that either. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would hope that people would want to come to these to connect, The only difference is that we're going to be talking about, like, Nancy, tell us about what are some things you're working on around building trust. What are some barriers you've had, right? So the conversation will be rooted in a different root cause, but
Right.
like if Angie attends, Angie could say, oh, actually, we just did this survey. We went out to people's homes and we had this happen. An example, someone was like, people were not answering the door for me, but they were answering the door for someone else, so we talked about trust and we were talking about perception, and so the conversation should be, and hopefully is like based in a different root cause, but that the connections are still there, right? So like,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And then this is just the sign off. That's my contact information. Feel free to use me for now. Amy will be back with us shortly. But usually we are a 2-person strong team. Thanks for bearing with me today as I did it alone. I feel like we did well.
I
We're
think you did.
small and mighty
I
group.
don't know anything different, so.
You have nothing to compare it to, Teshna. I'm just gonna you're gonna be my spokesperson for Sarah did a great job. But no, thank you for spending time today and for really being invested and engaged. I loved hearing about all of your different work. I will send you an email following today's meeting with all of your emails. If you miss something or Nancy's like, oh, I forgot the name of this person, help me out, please reach out. Our goal is to support you as best as possible, help connect, help strengthen everything, and to learn about what you're doing as well. So that's all, but thanks for joining today. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.
And
Thanks.
Angie, you want me to shoot you an email or you want to shoot me an email? Because I can get your email from Sarah.
Either way, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Just shoot me an email real quick and then I'll email you back. That
Okay.
way. Okay, cool.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks all.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.